Well, I'm back. I mean, it took me long enough to get this review out, right? Yeah, let's just dive right into it. MMXX or 2020 by Sons of Apollo. So, Sons of Apollo is a semi progressive rock supergroup. It combines a whole lot of different personalities. We have the same personalities actually from their debut album, so you can find that right up there for all the backgrounds of all the musicians. The two big ones are the ex-Dream Theater musicians of Derek Shernanen and Mike Portnoy. I know I butchered Derek's last name, but whatever. We all know he was the lead keyboardist from the Falling Into Infinity. He also, I believe, helped out on Change of Seasons. It's really interesting to see these two personalities really working very well together. And that was something that I feel this album brought to the table much more than their debut album. Like, I did enjoy their debut album, but at the end of the day, I did feel like it was just a bunch of guys kind of past their prime in some sense, coming around and just jamming away. And that's one of the big advantages of this album. Not only do they have an album already behind them, they also have the touring circus behind them as well. So they've gotten to know one another's personalities, they've gotten to know which strengths and weaknesses they bring to the table and how to play with that properly. And that's the strength of this album. It feels much more like a band. It feels much more like a unified group of people coming together. Most of the songs on this album are quite enjoyable. They're the typical progressive metal music, and there's nothing really more beyond that in terms of 2020 on this particular album. And in some ways, that's a good thing, because I don't feel like they're biting off more than they can chew. I don't feel like they're experimenting too much. They know what they want to play, and they play it very well. And that's kind of what's to be found on this particular album. Now, of course, there's going to be songs that are better than others. My particular favorite on this album is Fall to Ascend. I love the drive of this track. I love how heavy hitting this track is. It has that kind of Metallica, almost like Black album feel to it with that big drive, that really meaty production work. This is what thrash metal would be if you slew it. This is what thrash metal would feel like if you had slowed it down a little bit and then really pump up the production value on it. Not quite as raw and much more meaty. And I love the fact that Fall to Ascend follows King of Delusion, another really highlight of this album. It's very dark, it's very menacing, it has this really creepy hollow sound to it at times that it almost feels like there's something hiding in the shadows of this track. The lead singer of Jeff Scott Soto does a fantastic job of enunciating just the right moments to make it really creepy and really unsettling. And this song also ebb and flows very well. Like, it goes on a really nice journey in terms of being heavy and being very energetic at certain parts, and then being that same heaviness but much more subdued and a lot more scaled back, and the playing around of that was a really fun time. But as I said, not all the moments work on this. Desolate July is fine, and this is the song. I know I'm kind of going backwards in the runtime here. This is the one that precedes King of Delusion, but Desolate July, it doesn't have that same power, that same energy that the songs around it do. The second track of Asphyxiation has that drive, and the first track of Wither to Black, again, these two opening tracks, Wither to Black and Asphyxiation, have that drive, have that powerhouse behind them. And then when we get into Desolate July, it is time to kind of come down, but I do feel like King of the Delusion has that same energy that all the other tracks do, but in a much more somber moment. And because it does ebb and flow, it provides a lot more of a enjoyable listen, whereas Desolate July feels a little bit more power ballady. It feels a little bit more like it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And a little bit to the same extent of Resurrection Day. Like, Resurrection Day it's fine, it still has that energy, and I do like a lot of those background sounds that we have on the guitar work. Ronald, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. His guitar work on this album shines, and I do enjoy when he's kind of brought into the forefront, but what I really enjoy is when he actually takes a little bit of a back seat and he's just providing the atmosphere and letting Derek kind of shine on the the keyboards there. Both do a very good job of letting one go into the spotlight and then coming back, and then letting the other one go into the spotlight and coming back. And they know when to flourish and also just when to keep the atmosphere afloat. So I like how these guys just are really able to balance their personalities very, very well. That brings us to the big track of New World Today, the 15, almost 16 minute track. And honestly, it's fine. I don't really have all that much to say about this track other than it is, you know, a progressive metal kind of epic. I don't feel like it really hits any of the high points. I don't feel like the length is really that justified. Like, I feel like the big crescendo that we have at the end doesn't really pay off all that well. I feel like there are probably 3 really good tracks that are found in this piece, this suite, that could have been separated and been their own track, as opposed to putting maybe 5 ideas down on a single track. In the end, this Sons of Apollo 2020, or MMXX, was a much better album than their first album. I did find myself enjoying it a lot more than that first album, but I probably won't be coming back to it all that much, if I'm being perfectly honest. And in fact, I listened to this album when it first came out, and I never really got around to doing a review of this album. Just life has been getting in the way. That's why I'm still here. After listening to it again just for this review, there wasn't too much for me to really dig myself into. I didn't really feel all that excited about it, but I didn't hate my time. I actually enjoyed my time while I was in it. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is a stream. This is an album that I would stream, but that's about it. So what did you guys think of MMXX, or 2020 by Sons of Apollo? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know of your own thoughts by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.